Oh, I haven't seen one.
This is the time and the place for the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners meeting, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. And I want to welcome everyone that attended, and appreciate everyone attending. And first order of business is Pledge Allegiance, led by our director.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will Suzanne give us a roll call for the commissioners?
Chairman Lent.
Here.
Vice Chairman Rain.
Here.
Commissioner Capurro.
Here.
Commissioner Calvin.
Here.
Commissioner Howell.
Here.
Commissioner Coburn.
Here.
Commissioner Macbeth.
Here.
Commissioner Morai.
Here.
Commissioner Wallace.
Here. Thank you. Next, we'll have the roll call for the County Advisory Board members. If you'd stand up and say your name for Suzanne to take.
Ken Wellington, Elko County.
Bill Yoner, Carson City.
Bill Meyer, Lyon County. Stan Zuber, Carson City. Corey Lyle, Wayne.
Rex Flowers, Washoe.
Thomas Wilson, Washington County.
Walt Vanderbilt, Lyon County.
Thank you. Again, welcome everybody. Next item of business is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any changes, removal, change of presentation of the agenda? If not, I'll have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Commissioner Capurro moved, second.
Second.
By Commissioner Rain. All for, say aye.
Aye.
Next item of business is member items and announcements. Any commissioner have any emergent items? I have a couple, but go ahead with anyone has any items they'd like to bring up. Commissioner Coburn.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like to bring up during a recent outing I had, and in talking with some of our constituents down in Clark County, some junior hunters as well as some senior hunters had voiced to me concern that after being drawn over a period of years, the lack of our deer population and being able to have any success or even seeing in any deers, and that they were looking forward next year to hunting in Utah. And I just thought that that point should be brought up, and just perhaps we'll discuss it at a later time. Excuse me.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Rain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple things. One would be a little bit of new business, and then some old business that really hasn't been taken care of. One is the question about we passed some changes to Policy 1 a while ago, and I'd like to know if there'd been any donations received by Endow since then, because that has not come up. It had been part of the policy to review those and acknowledge them publicly, and I had not heard or seen anything about that since. I don't know if there was any.
Does anybody, Director, want to respond to that?
Well, my understanding was that we'd provide you not as a running tally as those donations came in, but an annual summary of those donations that came in. So we're not at the end of we didn't need to decide whether it's going to be on a fiscal year basis or a January to December 30th basis. So my inclination would be on a annual fiscal year basis, because that's the way we do all our budgeting, and that's how it's wrapped into our budgeting process. So.
Okay. You can try it.
Okay.
Did you have other items?
Yes. Now I'm somewhat concerned about. In the past, I've asked a few questions, and I have received no answers. Back in June, I asked a question about some budgetary information, and I've asked at every commission meeting since, and I've received no answers. I've sent an email with the correct wording after the last meeting. I'd asked, said, well, can you send that in writing? I sent it in writing. It's been in excess of a month and a half ago, I have received nothing, and, you know, what does it take to get budgetary information out of NDOW? I mean, do we have to sue NDOW to get information? It's very frustrating. Also, last meeting I asked for backup for the scientific basis for the article written by Aaron Meyer and published in NDOW. It's in the minutes. It's published in our NDOW Hunt book. And because I've received no such information, I must therefore assume that such information does not exist, and this article must be made up or something. I don't know. If it doesn't exist, if you didn't give it to me, therefore, since this information doesn't exist, I would request a retraction if you don't have any support basis for it.
Well, I'll check into that. That may have fallen through the cracks. It certainly wasn't something that was malicious, because there is backup to that. There will be no retraction, and we'll provide that backup information. I apologize if you haven't received that. As far as the fiscal information, quite frankly, I'm not sure what you're asking. You received a letter, if it's relative to my travel claims and professional organizations that we're associated with. You got a letter from our Attorney General representative, and you were requested to make, if you weren't happy with the letter that she wrote you, that you needed to provide me and her directly specifics of what you're really asking for, and then we'd provide that. I haven't received anything.
I did so on October 27th. I sent in an email with that, and I forwarded also to the chairman and Mr. Stockton. I assume that was received.
I have not received it.
I've got a hard copy of that here at this point in time. Did not receive that? Don't remember that, Mr.
I don't remember seeing it, but
That was October 27th. And
Well, drop it in the U.S. mail or give it to me.
I have a hard
Give it to me
copy
today.
right here. That perhaps would be the simplest thing on that. And as for what was sent in by the Deputy Attorney General, that was answering questions that were not asked. As is reflected in the videotape, you go back and look at the questions that were asked. Those were not answered. Questions that were answered in the letter were never asked. I asked for budgetary information.
We can
Was no
certainly have her
budgetary
respond
line
to
items.
those accusations. I'm sure she'll be very happy to respond to that.
Okay, and I mentioned that last
And I
meeting.
would suggest to all the commissioners that if you have these kinds of pointed things, that we don't do it in a public forum, and verbal, you need to put it in writing, send it to us officially. We'll know exactly what it is that you're looking for. Quite frankly, we had 3 people look at that tape and interpret it the way it was responded to. So we apologize for that, but it'd be much easier if it was actually in writing.
I have that. Yes, sir. I just will make a photocopy of that.
anybody else? I have a couple items here I wanted to bring up. This was, there's been some confusion about my committee chairman on preparation of their draft minutes, and so this is going out to the committee chairman. And I would recommend that all committee chairs review the draft minutes for errors before staff post them on the internet, because you want to make sure there's nothing, they're correct as far as what your meeting reflects. And keep in mind, staff has to get the draft minutes to you promptly, and you must respond to staff promptly, because the open meeting law says the draft minutes have to be out within 30 days. So they have to get them to you, you have to review them, then you have to make sure you real quickly review them and call staff up and say they're okay, because they only have 30 days by the open meeting law. And so make sure you work with your staff member, because they're there to support you, and I would certainly want to review them before. And so just make sure you work with your staff person, and they're there to help you. And that's what I'd recommend to the committee chairs. Another item I have is on the public comment period. Since we don't have an adequate clock, I'm going to have the vice chair, Rain, hold up a red card when you have 15 seconds left, because I know when you get talking, you don't know if you're talking for a minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You lose track of time. And so when he holds up the card, that means you have 15 seconds to wrap it up, and then we got to go on to everyone else so we can get everybody. We want everybody to have a time to present their views at the meeting, at the public meeting. And so just watch for the card to go up and then just wrap it up and before we call on the next person. The other thing I had is I heard there was I've heard of problems with this wanton waste regulation that we did last time. Some complaints from hunters and maybe law enforcement will ask if they had any problems, and I'm going to see if Rob has heard anything. And then another question I had, and it's going to be for law enforcement, and I'd like to ask them for a report on remote camera uses regarding big game hunting. I've had some hunters tell me that some guides are putting remote cameras at all the water holes in southern Nevada to entice the governor's tag to go with them because they've spotted the biggest one, and they monitor from the computer at home. And I just got some problems with it as far as I think that's as bad as camping near a water hole, and I want to see if law enforcement had any complaints about it, because we might want to do a regulation to prohibit that, because I just think it's given hunters a bad name to monitor waters with remote and infrared cameras 24 hours a day and then pass that information on to guides. And I think it gives us a black eye, and we might have to do a regulation. But I'd like to ask law enforcement if they've heard anything about those two items. If we're out here, if you want to just respond to that. And
yeah, for the record, Rob Bonamici, Chief Game Warden. With regards to the wanton waste regulation that we passed not too long ago, comments we've been hearing from the hunters, obviously some of them have no comment one way or the other, so we don't hear anything. Others have made comments to the effect that, you know, this is really a waste of meat. You know, there's 30 pounds or so of elk neck meat. How come we did this? Why are we allowing this? So we get those type of comments. In addition, we've gotten about, don't hold me to this number off the top of my head, but about 12 to 15 calls, reports of poachings from hunters saying, hey, I ran across this poached deer. Most of them have been deer, about 3 or 4 of them I believe have been elk, and their reports are, hey, there's this poached deer, poached elk up there. They took the head, left most of the meat. We go out, spend 4 to 8 hours, you know, driving out to the scene, investigating it, only to find they indeed met the letter of the law. They just took what they were required to take. And there's a lot of hunters out there, percentage-wise, I don't know, that feel that's just totally unacceptable. So that's the feedback we've been getting. With regards to the trail cameras on water holes and springs, it's also occurring at guzzlers. The issue there's a couple ways to look at it. One way might be, well, it might eventually resolve itself, because just about every spring water hole guzzler over in Elko County, what they're reporting to me, White Pine County has cameras on them, multiple cameras at times, and now they're going around stealing the little SD cards out of the cameras and loading them and downloading the pictures. So that might cure itself with all the hunters stealing each other's photos. The more problematic issue that we see with regards to the wildlife resource is what they're doing is to get a good photo, they're setting up artificial barriers around the water hole, guzzler, spring, what have you, to funnel the animals right in front of the camera lens so they get a good shot. So you can imagine what the potential ramification that has on our wildlife from the standpoint of, you know, access to that water. if they got to go through their single file, almost as through a cattle chute. So those are the issues as we see them now, off the top of my head, without doing a intense survey. If you'd like, I could bring back more information, more in-depth information, but I think you're going to find that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Chairman Lynn, may I ask a
Just a
question?
second. I'll probably pass that on to committee chair of our procedures and contact you and to see if there's let them put on their agenda to bring back to the commission if there's a real need for regulation to work with you on that. Is that okay?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay, Commissioner McBeth?
Thank you, Chairman Lynn. Chief Bonamici, have you had any discussions with the public land agencies, Forest Service, BLM, on what their position is with respect to these cameras? And I would assume most of these springs are on public lands, and just curious if they have any rules or if they have a position or anything on that.
Correct, they are most of them are on public lands. No, I have not had a conversation with them as far as their thoughts on it. To my knowledge, there is nothing illegal about it from their perspective as well.
And would that be the same for springs that are in wilderness areas?
I believe so, but I can
They
check
do.
on that for you.
Yeah, I have a feeling that would be probably covered by the rules for wilderness areas. I would assume that any mechanical things are not allowed in a wilderness area.
I'm not sure on that.
Okay.
Mechanical with regards to motor vehicles, yes, but regards to a digital camera, I'd have to double check that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner,
I'd like to ask, we already have laws against constructing any barriers or corridors around the water holes, right?
What we have are laws regarding camping on the water holes, precluding access to the water holes that way. We don't have laws regarding barriers to water holes. Those do not exist, those laws.
That seemed to me something we should address.
Commissioner Howell, that's what, I wanted to bring this up to get the discussion started, to see if it's an issue or not, and it looks like it's probably a valid issue that I'll refer it back to the committee to work with you and come back to the commission with some recommendations and possibly a regulation, because personally I think that it gives hunters a bad name.
Right.
And I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I can't imagine anyone, too many people smart. Commissioner Cavan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a little bit split in the, from the Boone and Crockett perspective and Fair Chase. They're accepting the fact that people use trail cams as long as it's not remotely monitored. If you have to go out physically and check your camera, that's different than if you're sitting at your desk and you've got 50 cameras around the state or around an area and can check them from your PC. So that's just another little twist that part of the controversy, so to speak.
We want to try to do what's best here in Nevada.
Yeah.
And that's what I brought that up. I had one other item on here.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Corbin?
Thank you. How widespread and how much of an abuse do you really think this is at this point in time?
With regards to
To
the
these trail
camera,
cameras?
I think it's pretty widespread. You'll find it from southern tip of Nevada to the northern corners.
I had one other item requesting of the director. On page 16 of the minutes, there was a note in there that said Secretary Mayor said Randy Stevens of LCB would write a letter to the commission stating the intent of the language in that bill. It was on page 16 of the minutes, and maybe if he would follow up with Randy Stevens to
Sure.
get that letter to me. I never received anything. Thank you. Anybody else, any commissioner, have any other commissioner items before I move on? If not, we'll move on to the next item of business, county advisory boards to manage wildlife member items. Any county advisory member want to bring anything forward? Step on up, state your name for the record.
Thank you and good morning. Ken Wellington from Elko County. I had a couple items. I noticed on this agenda there wasn't anything about the mule deer and progress. Maybe we could put something in the future for updates for what each CAB has done, because I know a lot of the CABs have met and might have some input that would help other CABs. If you could maybe add that on, it's just a suggestion. With that, I'd like to say that our CAB has now created a mule deer subcommittee to look into that, and it went pretty well. I assigned one of the members of our committee as the chair, and by the end of the meeting we had a pretty packed meeting. He had a page full of names of interested people. With that, we also spoke about following some prosecution of some of the poachers. As you heard Mr. Bonamici say, Elko County kind of got pounded this year with some poaching, and what we thought we'd do is we'd assign one of our members from our board to monitor prosecution in the district attorney's office, make sure things are followed through with that. Also, I had a concern, or our board did, regarding the Forest Service travel management plan. I know this commission's taken a stand against the travel management plan with our county commission. When the Forest Service came into our county commission last week, they mentioned closure of several of the roads up in the Elko County area due to sage grouse and the goshawk nesting areas. These closures, and they used that as part of their reason for closing. We produced a letter of memorandum that says that BLM and Forest Service are responsible for habitat, and that State Department of Wildlife is responsible for wildlife. And therefore, I just wanted to make sure that the department is not commenting on that at this point unless we have public input and CAB input and this commission's input as to that. So that would be the biggest concern, because they kind of threw that out at the county commission meeting, that they were doing that, and that would be contrary to what everybody's kind of already voted on and decided on, just for information. No, I understand. And that's it for the county input. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Question. We got a question.
Sir.
Ken, how many board members were at your last meeting?
We had 5.
And how many
Public
members?
I had 24 people from the public, and I had 6 staff members from Endow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other CABs? Step on up.
For the record, Gil Yana, Carson Advisory Board. 2 issues. One, the Carson Advisory Board, together with the Douglas County Advisory Board, sent a letter to the Forest Service requesting that the gate at Spooner Summit be moved back to have a second location gate, that if the weather permitted, that would allow hunters to have access further into the forest. We're going to follow up with them. The initial verbal response was, yes, they got the letter, they thought it was a good idea, but some of our board members who have been up there recently is that the gate right by the road is locked. There is no secondary gate, so maybe we'll just have to work a little bit harder with the Forest Service to make them understand what we're trying to accomplish, and we will invite them to our meeting, which will be the next meeting, which will be in February. The second item is I just want to prepare you that during the public comment period, you will see a very short presentation on the status of the Fuji Park pond. And we want to thank everybody for their support in doing this.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Carroll.
Yeah, I'm going to ask this question of every CAB that comes up here, and that's also how many members were at your last meeting?
4 out of 5.
And how many people other than
2
CAB members? And staff?
1.
Thank you.
Thank you. And other county advisory boards, step on up.
For the record, Corey Lytle, Lincoln Cab. Two quick things. One is in regard to the mule deer subcommittees. We've basically named ours a working group down in Lincoln County, and we're working towards some projects and some things, some long-term planning and program, creation. Trying to get members from NDOW, the BLM, sportsmen, interested parties, private landowners. We're trying to get a mix of people in on that, and it's working real well. The public is real receptive to it, so I think it's something we can really work toward. Second thing is I emailed we also placed this on our agenda. It's in regard to the statewide tag program that Maureen and the Heritage Committee had mailed out a month or two ago in September, I believe. The CAB down in Lincoln felt it so important that we put it on our last agenda, and we addressed it, and we sent a letter talking about that statewide tag program and our concerns down there, in particular with elk and deer, and the amount of harvest that takes place with these statewide programs in certain units year after year after year, and the potential of degrading the resource, degrading the program in itself. So. And I don't want to take the time to read the letter, but I've got copies of it. Well, I've got one copy of it. Maureen was kind enough to get me that. Okay. And if
Corey, would you make sure that all of us get that, especially me too?
Great.
It's in the packet.
I gave it to you. You could write it like 5 minutes before the meeting.
And I just want to reiterate that we're more than willing to work with the Heritage Committee and the Commission just to kind of get ahead of the curve. And we realize how successful the program is, and the continual programs and the future programs. We just want to make sure that we keep it successful.
You've got to appreciate all the help you're giving us, and you guys have got a great group.
We're trying. And we had 4 Commission members or CAB members and 5 public members at the last one.
Any staff?
No staff. He was actually coaching his son's football team. He was trying to be there. He was there by cell phone at times.
Thank you.
So 1.
Any other county advisory board? Any items? Hearing none, I'll move to the next item of business, public comment period. And excuse me.
Could I go?
Yes, you're first.
We've had a lot of problems over the last few months with the open meeting law, and I'd just like to try and clarify the line between proper comments and comments that violate the open meeting law. And I thought I'd use an example. And let's say that I had done something wrong that you don't like, and you come to the podium and you say, Mr. Stockton did this. I don't think it's right, and here's why. Because this is bad for game, this is bad for people, whatever. That's fine. Now, if you come to the podium and say, that no good Stockton, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with an elephant gun, he's a lousy hunter, and, he's got a bad haircut, those kind of things are personal attacks. We should string him up. Those are personal attacks. So if you just say, Brian Stockton did this, and here's why it's wrong, here's why we should do something else, that's fine, okay? But when you go saying, so-and-so's, Brian Stockton's a dirty no-good-nick, then you're violating the open meeting law, and we're going to have to stop you. So I hope that by using that example, it kind of makes it clear where the line is. It's obviously not crystal clear, but that gives you an idea where to stop. And so hopefully that clears it up a little bit. Okay?
Anybody wishing to make public comment want to make sure they fill out a card if they wish to speak, and we're limited to 3 minutes. And like I said, the Commissioner Rain will be holding up a red card when there's 15 minutes left. So
15 minutes. 15 seconds.
15 seconds. I'm sorry.
15 seconds. I can't.
I'm thinking and talking. When there's 15 seconds left.
Oh, I'm going to get some help here. That's going to be even nicer.
Make sure you state your name for the record, too.
Ah, that helps really good.
I'm just here to back you up.
Okay, well, there's actually 4 photographs that are loaded on this guy.
Where are they at?
Where are they at? Go ahead and jump to it.
That would be,
Right there. There. They're in sequence, left to right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, Commissioners. For the record, my name is C.K. Bailey from Carson City. I'm with the Carson Fly Fishing Club. On March 3rd, 1999, the Carson Fly Fishing Club voted to build a 1-acre fishing pond open to the public, stocked with trout for the purpose of recreation and teaching of the sport of fishing. This first image that you see is of an abandoned go-kart track that opened for years just south of Clear Creek, the site of the Fuji Park Fishing Pond. The fishing pond is being built now on site and is almost complete. Next image, please. You are so good. You are very good. By the way, this is the first cutting. This is the first hole, the first dig, if you will. With major funding from Question 1 Bond Fund through NDOW, Nature Conservancy, along with the Carson City Parks and Recreation Department grant gathering, and some personal efforts in fundraising, the pond was possible. Next image, please. There's only 4, so I'm watching for that card. The 15-foot pond, 15-foot deep pond, boasts a 20-foot square floating platform that has railing and rod holders in that railing. The concrete path to the platform makes it wheelchair accessible. Next image, please. A concrete bench protected by an old stand of willows has been poured so that onlookers can rest and watch the action. At a new large parking area has also been constructed south of the pond. 6% of Clear Creek flows from south to north, creating the current, while a huge underground aquifer delivers water from below. Before I take any questions, I wish to publicly thank Ms. Laura Richards, Mark Warren, Rich Haskins, Pat Solberger from NDOW. Without their help, this project would have certainly not been possible. There are many, many more to thank, but not at this time. So it is with great pleasure and pride that I give and bring to you the Fuji Park Fishing Pond, the capital city's fishing pond. Thank you very much, Commissioners. Any questions?
very interesting.
Opening spring?
Opening day? Is that what you said? Opening is slated for springtime, the end of May, depending on the ground cover. If the ground cover has shored up the shores, we don't want it trampled to death too early. And then there'll be public, the public will be brought in. There'll be quite a grand opening.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. That's it? Thank you so much. Thank
you. Speaking as a member of the public, Ilyana, Mr. Bailey is very modest. Personally, in his own time and effort, been out knocking on doors, twisting arms, and by himself has raised an additional $20,000 of contributions to make this come to fruition. As of yesterday, I got a call from the Vern Cron from the Parks and Recreation Department. The floating pond for people, particularly those disabled, is in the water. It's being tied to the concrete bulkhead, and things are moving forward very, very rapidly. And again, without people like CK, whose efforts on this have gone back for 10 years, has finally made this come to fruition. So the comments that some people have said regarding, they see it in the department's fishing bulletins that we have a park in fishing pond in Carson City, now can support that, and we can tell them exactly where it is and when it's going to be open. But we want to thank every member of the commission for supporting it. Laura, again, for seeing that we got a lot of funding, and the people in Carson City, the Parks and Recs, were able to find other grant opportunities to make this really thing happen. And we want to thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great project, just what we need for kids.
Right on.
I'm Don Holt, Nevada Livestock Association. My board of directors, I'm chairman, my board of directors asked me to come speak today, and on response to this funneling of game into water, like your game warden was talking about, that water out there is private property. And that funneling of game into there, if it obstructs the livestock from accessing that water, it is highly against the law. And even anybody's cameras out there, if they're hindering the livestock, it is not good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brandon Fordine. I have a few things here. The first one was brought to my mind from what Scott Rain said previously about not getting response back from the department. As sportsmen, I would like the same courtesy, and all other sportsmen. My last letter went to Dr. Lint on October 2nd. I have never received a response back nor an answer to any of my questions in any letters I ever send. So I think that as Sportsman Nevada, whoever we send our letters to, what rep, we deserve a response and an answer to all the questions. As far as the trail camera, I don't think there's a law that could be put in place to change that. But I'm with Tom as far as the fair chase and what Nevada could do. I have contacted Boone and Crockett over the last couple of years about it. I think it's a real problem. I don't myself believe that's fair chase when you put 30, 40, 50, 60 cameras out and don't step a foot in the field of scouting. I think that's something that as Sportsman Nevada we could take forth to the Nevada record book and change what's fair chase. That would, I believe, put an end to people wanting to do that, because it comes down to the dollar why people are doing it, to sell the animal. And then the next thing, I don't know if I'll be around later to talk on the policy. I know it's on the agenda, so I just wanted to touch on it right now on policy 22. I want to state my opinion on it, that I'm against any changes to the policy as far as transplant, about notifying each and every person that's around. In my opinion, that'd be like notifying every sportsman in Nevada, because that the wildlife is part of every single person in Nevada, and I don't believe that contacting just the few around it is precedent. That'd be like the cattleman contacting every resident for anything that has to do with an AUM, because it's all public land. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning again, Ken Wellington. I'm representing myself on this. And I just had one concern over some of the committee assignments. I know they kind of came out at the end. And as a, consider myself a conservationist and avid duck hunter and bird hunter. And I noticed that two of the committees, the Duck Stamp Committee and the Kirch Wildlife Committee, don't have our conservation rep on there. And so I didn't know if it's too late to do that, or I know he's got a lot on his plate already with some of the other committees he's on, but I just wanted to bring that up, that, you know, as a conservationist person, I would like to see that person on those committees. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the record, Garth Elliott, Commissioners and Chairman. You know, you come to different meetings. I got up this morning, I wanted to talk about something else, about bullfrogs and crawdads, and got up and get dressed for the 20-degree weather on my motorcycle, and came down here and got another jewel of information. I've been trying to get the county to do something with cameras trying to catch graffiti people, people destroying public property. I come down here and find out that fishermen are using it to sit in their living room, technology, and watch for fish and game. Yet, the county and BLM's a little more savvy. They have some cameras they use to catch people, but the county can't figure out how to use the same technology to, in real time, catch somebody that is graffitiing their property. So maybe this technology can be a boon for people such as yourself trying to eliminate poaching and damage to Nevada's environment by using the same technology basically against people. But I'm definitely going to take this to the commission because I was not aware that technology gotten to such an extent that you could actually sit in your easy chair and get the feeds in, and I guess you could with any telephone lines or anything close power, get feeds in and sit there real time and watch fish. And it's time to go out and try to catch that trout. But thank you.
Do you have a card? In what county are you talking about? Because we don't have your card.
Oh, Washoe County as far as what?
You were talking about the county is not doing...
Oh, Washoe County is real down on telemetry, yeah. I've been trying for 3 or 4 years to get them to... They have horrendous problems. And they're repetitious places, too. All they got to do is put a fixed camera at a certain place and either do it digitally, or this is even better, to do like the road system does, to have it televised to a central location and say, hey, Sheriff's Department, we got somebody out there actively tagging something. But they've been very down on, they'd rather take care of it after it happens, spend hundreds of dollars fixing the problem instead of being a little more proactive. So
could we get your card there?
Yeah, I got it here. Thank you for the time.
Any other public comment period?
For the record, my name is Bob Brenner. I'm with the Coalition for Nevada Wildlife, but I'm just speaking for myself. I've got some questions on item 22, and I know that's on the agenda, but it ties into several other things that are going on, so I want to bring it up. So hopefully we can kind of maybe change the tone or the focus or anything like this. So my question on 22, starting with...
Did you give us a card?
Yes, I did.
Bob Bruner?
That's correct. My question on 22 is how does that help mule deer? Okay. And I think if we start and we finish with how does this help mule deer, I think we can get a better focus on where we're going.
Later.
Okay?
Yep.
Anyways, this issue is a paperwork item. If it gets passed, you folks have more work. If it gets passed, these folks have more work. We're spending more mule deer dollars on staffing. The state is against it. So I would ask that when we're doing these types of things that we look at how is that helping mule deer or wildlife in general. The item that you brought up earlier, item 1, Chairman Rain brought up on approval or disapproval of grants. Again, if that passes, and it did, you folks get extra work, they get extra work, they spend mule deer dollars on staffing. How does that help anybody? Okay, we're building a paperwork nightmare here instead of working on mule deer, and I would like to hope that we could move forward, making things happen for wildlife instead of just doing a paperwork grind and just kind of going off, I don't know where. So, anyways, that applies to all items. You know, how does that help mule deer? When we open it up, is this helping or is this just paperwork? Thank you,
Mr. Chairman. I think I'd like to remind everybody that this slotting is for public comment on items that are not on the agenda.
Item 1 is not on the agenda.
Item 22 certainly is. So
yes, it is.
Can we confine the remarks to things that aren't on the agenda, and then you'll have plenty of time to remark when we come to that general order?
Thank you. Anybody else step up to the mic, identify yourself?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Ira Hansen. I appeared before you in February about a petition I had at that time. At that time, brought to the record was the fact that my son had received 2 citations That was also extensively used by the department at the legislature. I want the record to reflect, which I gave you a handout too, pages 1 through 9. I want the record to reflect that both of those citations were dismissed. As I said at the time, that they were malicious, they were vindictive, and in fact, they have been shown to be so. I also want to go over the fact that on pages 4 through 7 of my handout, Mr. Stockton said I shouldn't name specific people, but the individual who filed the complaint against my son, in his statements, both of these here, admit openly to doing what he accused my son of. Yet no prosecution was done by the Department of Wildlife of him going and tampering with my traps. Should also point out that I did the investigation. I met, they would not, Department of Wildlife would not tell me where this ranch was. Through all this information, I found out the facts. It's the Silver Creek Ranch north of Austin. I went and met with the rancher. I asked him, I had trapped on the ranch for years. The owners, there were 2 sisters and one of the sisters' husbands. They used to listen to me on KOH when I did my radio show there, and I had full permission to trap on their property, and I've done so for about 5 years. So when this guy made these accusations, I went directly to the source. I was also accused of supposedly trapping one of his livestock. I went, again, it was just through talk to Mr. Bonamici. They claimed they had pictures of it and everything else. I went and talked to the rancher directly. He said he'd never had any allegations, that he'd never had anything done. The individual who filed this report also claimed that I had killed one of the rancher's dogs. I asked the rancher, did I kill one of your dogs? And in fact, the rancher said no, and in fact, I wish you'd do me some favors. I have too many dogs. So by doing the homework myself, I discovered that all of this stuff was based on one individual filing this report. The interesting thing is the department, the law enforcement people, gave my son these citations without doing an investigation until after they'd given him the tickets. So I think that's something that you guys are here to protect the public. This is a case of malicious prosecution because I'm an outspoken critic. It was my son, and this isn't done. We will be doing some more legal action. I do want to also on pages 7 through 9. The department would not cooperate on this whole thing. I asked for pictures. He said, Captain Masich of the Department of Wildlife asked for, told me he had pictures. I requested the copies of the pictures. They wouldn't give them to me. I actually hired an attorney. Page 5, you'll see the letter. Excuse me, page 7, you'll see the letter that my attorney sent to the department. We, to this date, have never received those pictures. And you will note that the pictures that they are supposedly using on page 9 come from the individual that filed the original complaint. I want to say right here, it says photos taken on a disposable camera by the individual have not been developed. I left a message and I'm not sure when I will receive them. He said the pictures, da-da-da-da-da. Time's up. Thank you very much. It's very important that this body rein in law enforcement when they use malicious tactics against people who are unpopular or who say things that they disagree with. It's not the purpose. We have civil rights in America, and it's important that you rein herd on these people that you are in charge of. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, I'm sorry. Could you? I want to make sure that in the minutes it reflects the copies of the dismissals from both of the courts that were involved. I'd like those to be included in the official minutes.
We have a copy.
Thank you.
We can do it. Thank you. Hearing no other public comment, I'll close the public comment period, and the next item of business is